The first 2 decades of the 20th century were full of political turmoil, and Imperial Russia was no exception with the rise of communism and the disaster of World War I. Of all the players in Russia, few were as controversial, influential, and mysterious as the mad monk Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin, a self-appointed prophet and faith healer who became indispensable to the Romanov royal family, looked upon as a friend and a savior. Did Rasputin have magical powers? Was he an impostor or charlatan? How did he gain such influence over the Russian royal family? And why was he killed?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former soldier, Marine Corps scout sniper, history professor, historian, and book author. And we've answered these questions and other issues on this segment of Forgotten History.
Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin was born into a Siberian peasant family around 1869 in the village of Pokrovskoye on the banks of the Tura River, and it is believed that he received a limited education and was probably illiterate. Historians believe that the family name Rasputin meant where two rivers meet, describing the area where he was born. The people of his village believed that he was possessed with supernatural healing powers starting at age 12, although we have no written record of his powers. However, there are other stories of cruelty towards other children and animals. The story gets convoluted regarding Rasputin, who grew up working on the family farm. Most of the myths around Rasputin and his powers primarily stem from his early affiliation with religion. Rasputin entered the Verkhotyr monastery in Russia, intending to become an Orthodox monk, but left shortly thereafter. One story is that he left to get married. The other is that he was married and then joined the monastery. Other stories circulated that, being unable to read and write, he was not capable of the studies required and was therefore dismissed. He often went months without bathing or changing clothes, and often disappeared into the forest. Rasputin also proclaimed himself to be a higher being, almost an incarnation of God. He built the chapel under his house and invited many other people to follow his own unique interpretation of faith. There were stories that his religious services involved his having sex with members of his congregation. It was these stories that also followed Rasputin. It is believed that at age 19 he supposedly married Praskovia Fedorovna Dubrovina, and they had 5 children, although 2 others died shortly after birth. Those that did live were daughters Maria, Varvara, and a son Dmitri. He then, for whatever reason, apparently left the village, left the farm and family in his early 20s, and traveled to Greece and the Middle East, making several pilgrimages to the Holy Land after he adopted the beliefs of the Klist sect. The Klist sect was founded in 1700 by Danila Filipich, who believed he was indeed God. The name means men of God, or the Klisti, and they believed that a man who was a true believer could achieve Christ-like status and develop healing powers and the gift of prophecy, which was considered heresy to the Orthodox Church. They also had a loose interpretation of spiritual relationships, and marriage in the church by a priest was not a true holy arrangement. In 1903, Rasputin arrived in St. Petersburg and met a monk who had limited connections to the royal family. But by October 1906, his reputation as a mystic healer in the city was well known, and he was introduced and eventually accepted into the court of Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra Fedorovna Romanov. Unfortunately for Rasputin, his reputation as a gallivanting womanizer followed right behind him, at least where the anti-Romanov newspapers were concerned. Due to the many stories of his alleged healing abilities and prophetic prognostications, Rasputin quickly gained their confidence by seemingly curing the son, Prince Alexis, of his hemophilia. It was recorded that he was able to stop the chronic nosebleeds and severe bruising suffered by the young Alexis, who was the only male son of the monarchs and their heir to the throne. These events, as well as his reputation as a mystic and faith healer, earned him the passionate support and personal friendship of Alexandra, and he became one of her favorites. Despite the numerous decades after the facts, his political influence at court was extremely minor. Between 1906 and 1914, various politicians and journalists, especially among the rising Bolsheviks, used Rasputin as an instrument to create mistrust and dissent towards the royal family. The Bolsheviks were communist believers in Marxist ideology, anti-capitalism, and anti-monarchy. Their leader in exile, Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, better known as Lenin, established the Communist Party and maintained a network of agitators and supporters, many being in the press. Lenin and the Bolsheviks believed that all the land should belong to the people, and the aristocracy had betrayed the Russian people for centuries. They also preached universal equality and promised a workers' paradise once the Romanovs were removed. The 1905 revolution in St. Petersburg had failed, and the communists continued to look for any excuse to lay blame in order to undermine the Romanovs' credibility and overthrow the government. Rasputin became one of those reasons. Rasputin claimed to be the Tsarina's advisor, which was fodder for the anti-royal press, and published accounts of his rampant lascivious behavior and affairs, true or not, increased the hatred for him among state officials. In truth, however, Rasputin's influence at this time was limited to the health of Alexis after several years of other mystics and doctors failing to cure their son. When World War I began, Rasputin predicted that disaster for Russia and the royal family would follow, which did not sit well with many at court. Nicholas II took command of the Russian army in 1915, and Alexandra handled domestic policy. Alexandra ignored the warnings from her ministers and royal relatives, who were suspicious and possibly jealous of the Mad Monk. There were even rumors that Rasputin and Alexandra had a torrid affair, although there has never been any evidence presented on this matter. Government officials tried to warn her of Rasputin's undue influence, but she continued to defend him, and her actions supported the impression that Rasputin was in fact her closest advisor. As Russia was losing millions of men at the front, and the people were suffering and starving back home, the time was right to strike. Rasputin had many powerful enemies, both Bolshevik and within the extended royal family, and both plotted to get rid of him. On the night of December 29, 1916, a group of conspirators, led by the Tsar's first cousin, Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, and Prince Felix Yusupov, invited Rasputin to Yusupov's palace for a dinner and to meet his wife, planned to get rid of him quietly, and fed him wine and cakes laced with cyanide. Though Rasputin eventually became rather drunk, poison seemed to have no effect, stunning the conspirators. Completely perplexed at how he could consume so much poison and survive, they finally decided to take direct action and shot him multiple times. Yet Rasputin still did not die, and was chased and finally put down by a bullet through his head. He was then wrapped in a carpet and thrown into the Neva River, where his body was discovered 3 days later. Despite getting rid of the Mad Monk, his absence did not eliminate his prophecies. Shortly before his death, he had written a letter to Nicholas II, predicting that if he were killed by his enemies, the entire royal family would be killed in turn by the Russian people. Ironically, all of Rasputin's predictions came true. The Bolsheviks were successful and took over the government. The royal family was arrested and sent to Yekaterinburg 15 months later, and when the Tsar, his wife, and all their children, including the famous Anastasia, were murdered on Lenin's order during the closing days of the Bolshevik Revolution, the prophecy was fulfilled. Rasputin still intrigues historians and the general public alike. Much about his life is known, but much is unknown. How much of his story was fact and how much was fiction fabricated by his enemies? So famous and controversial was Rasputin during his lifetime, mostly due to his royal connections, propaganda, and dramatic death, that today there is even a Rasputin museum in his hometown of Pokrovskoye.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of Forgotten History. Please click like and subscribe for free. And please stay tuned and be engaged and informed. Send us comments if you have questions or even show ideas, and we will respond to all requests and comments as soon as we can. Thank you.